What if the very thing that feels good right now is the same thing stealing your future? Not in a dramatic, obvious way, but in small, quiet moments. A late-night scroll that turns into an hour. A snack you don't even taste because you're eating to fill something else. A habit that once felt like a treat, now just feels like part of who you are. Pleasure isn't the problem, but there's a hidden cost to how we chase it. One that no one talks about because it doesn't show up all at once. It creeps in slowly, gently, and by the time you notice what it's taken from you, it's already gone. You might think this isn't about you, that your little escapes are harmless, that you're in control, and maybe you are for now. But let me ask you something. When was the last time you reached for comfort, not because you enjoyed it, but because you didn't want to feel something else? That's not pleasure, that's coping. And when coping becomes a lifestyle, it doesn't just change your day, it changes your direction. We live in a world engineered for instant gratification. Everything is fast, available, and designed to make you feel just good enough to come back for more. But no one tells you what that constant cycle does to your brain, your energy, your ability to sit still and focus. You weren't built for constant stimulation. You were built to create, connect, grow, struggle, win, lose, try again. But when pleasure becomes the default, all of that gets muted. And what's left is a life that feels flat, even if nothing is technically wrong. You see, there's a consequence to pleasure that people rarely admit, because it doesn't look like damage. It looks like comfort. But comfort, when taken too far, doesn't nourish you. It numbs you. It dulls your spark. It tells you to stay where you are, even when your soul is begging for something more. And over time, the small indulgences that once felt innocent start stealing your time, your focus, your motivation, and most dangerously, your sense of self. This video is about that forgotten cost. The one we don't talk about. The one we deny until it's too obvious to ignore. If you've ever felt like you're drifting, like the days are blending together, like the things you used to love now just feel like noise, this is for you. You're not lazy. You're not broken. You're just caught in a system that rewards short-term relief at the expense of long-term meaning. And you're not alone. By the end of this video, you're going to see pleasure differently. Not as the enemy, but as a signal, a clue that something deeper might be missing. You'll learn how your habits are shaping your identity, how your brain is being rewired without your permission, and how to take back control before the cost gets too high. This isn't about guilt or shame, it's about awareness. Because once you understand the hidden price of constant comfort, you get to choose. Do I keep chasing moments that feel good now, or do I start building a life that feels good later? Let's begin. It always starts innocently. A reward after a long day. A small treat because you deserve it. A little time to yourself. Scrolling, snacking, binging, buying. These moments feel harmless. In fact, they often feel necessary. After all, life is hard. Work is demanding, relationships can be draining, and the world never seems to slow down. So when you find something that gives you a brief spark of relief, why would you question it? But here's the part no one tells you. There's a line between enjoyment and escape, and most people don't realize they've crossed it until they're already on the other side. At first, pleasure feels like a conscious choice. You watch a show because you're interested. You eat something sweet because it tastes good. You scroll because you're curious. But over time, these moments start to shift. You're not choosing them anymore, you're defaulting to them. You're not excited by them, you're relying on them. And suddenly what was once enjoyable becomes necessary. Not for joy, but for numbness. You tell yourself it's no big deal. Everyone scrolls. Everyone snacks. Everyone needs to check out sometimes. And that's true. But the problem isn't the behavior. It's the frequency. The dependency. The slow erosion of your ability to be alone with your thoughts, without reaching for something to distract you. You're not relaxing. You're avoiding. You're not indulging. You're escaping. Let's pause for a second and ask a hard question. When was the last time you were truly present with yourself? Not stimulated, not entertained, just present. Most people can't even make it 5 minutes without checking their phone, turning on background noise or craving some form of input. And that's not by accident, it's by design. Modern life is built around keeping you just uncomfortable enough to need relief, but too distracted to notice what's causing your discomfort in the first place. Apps are engineered to hijack your attention. Foods are formulated to keep you craving more. Platforms know exactly how to feed your brain just enough dopamine to make you come back without ever satisfying the deeper hunger underneath. So what happens next? You start reaching for these comforts without even realizing it. It's not a decision anymore, it's a reflex. You walk into a room, your hand goes to your pocket, you sit down, and the screen lights up. You get bored, and suddenly you're on your third cookie, without knowing how it got there. Your body is present, but your mind is on autopilot. And every time that happens, your tolerance grows. It takes more to feel the same. And the small indulgences that once felt harmless start to steal your time, your focus, your sense of direction. But here's the most dangerous part. You still think it's a choice. You still believe you're in control. Because nothing feels wrong. You're not spiraling. You're not suffering. You're just coasting. But coasting, over time, turns into drifting. And drifting leads you somewhere you never intended to go. This is how escapism works. It's not explosive. It's not dramatic. It's quiet, gentle, almost compassionate in the way it slowly convinces you to lower your expectations, to avoid discomfort, to delay the hard conversations with yourself. It tells you, relax, just this once. You'll start fresh tomorrow. You've earned this. And eventually, you start to believe it. Because facing your real feelings feels harder than numbing them. And maybe that's where you are right now. Maybe you've noticed that the things that once brought you joy now just bring you silence. Maybe you can't remember the last time you finished something without checking your phone 5 times in between. Maybe your mind feels foggy more than clear. Your motivation low more than high. You're not broken. You're just burned out by a system that wants you sedated and compliant, not awake and alive. But here's the truth that might hurt a little. Not everything that feels good is good for you. In fact, the most addictive behaviors are often the ones that feel safest because they don't look like problems. No one worries when you say you watched Netflix for 6 hours. No one questions the 5th coffee or the 8th Amazon order this week. But deep down, you feel the tension. You sense the gap between the life you're living and the one you're capable of. And that gap doesn't close itself. It only widens the longer you distract yourself from it. So what can you do? First, name it. Get brutally honest about the difference between pleasure and avoidance in your life. What habits make you feel more alive afterward? And which ones leave you feeling numb, drained, or disconnected? Second, interrupt the pattern. When you feel the urge to scroll, to snack, to zone out, pause, just for 30 seconds. Ask yourself, what am I avoiding right now? You'll be surprised how often the answer is something deeper than boredom. Third, get uncomfortable, on purpose. Choose one activity a day that requires your full presence. A walk without your phone. A conversation without distraction. A moment of silence where you just sit with your thoughts. It might feel weird at first, even painful. That's okay, growth always does. Because here's the quiet truth. The cost of unchecked escapism isn't chaos, it's decay. You don't lose your spark all at once, you leak it. One unnoticed decision at a time. But the good news, you can take it back. The same way you drifted off course, you can choose to return. Not in a single day, but in small acts of clarity, honesty, and discomfort. It starts with noticing the shift from enjoyment to escape. And from there, you can start choosing something deeper. Something real. Something that doesn't just feel good for a moment, but makes your whole life feel more alive. And as we move into the next section, we'll look at what this escapism is actually doing to your mind and body behind the scenes. Because once you see how it works, you'll never fall for the illusion the same way again. You might think that pleasure, especially the kind you reach for every day, is harmless. A way to unwind. A small relief in a stressful world. But here's something most people never consider. The more often you chase quick pleasure, the more your brain changes. Not metaphorically, literally. Your brain begins to rewire itself, based on what you repeatedly reward. And if you're not careful, you can train your mind to crave comfort over growth, distraction over focus, and stimulation over substance. Let's break it down. Your brain is constantly adapting to your habits. It's designed for survival. So when you give it something that feels good, sugar, scrolling, gambling, gaming, even validation, it releases a chemical called dopamine. That's the reward neurotransmitter. It's what gives you that little hit of satisfaction and motivates you to do it again. The more often you give your brain that hit, the more it starts prioritizing whatever triggered it. Not because it's valuable, but because it's pleasurable. This is where the trap begins. Your brain, in trying to help you feel good, starts encouraging shortcuts. It begins to associate dopamine with easy wins. Why focus for 2 hours on something challenging when you could just check your notifications and get a faster reward? Why cook a meal when you can order food and feel satisfied instantly? Why wrestle with hard emotions when a stream of videos can drown them out? In small doses, this isn't a problem. The issue comes when the shortcut becomes the default. When your brain no longer reaches for meaning, it reaches for relief. When it stops asking what will fulfill you long-term and starts demanding what will soothe you right now. And the more this happens, the less joy you find in things that require effort. Reading, creating, being still, connecting deeply. These begin to feel boring. Your tolerance for stimulation has gone up. Your attention span has gone down, and without even noticing it, your ability to focus, your motivation to try, and your patience for discomfort have all been quietly drained. Think about it. When was the last time you sat through something boring without reaching for your phone? When was the last time you worked on a project just for the joy of it? Not for likes, not for views, not for immediate praise, but just to create something meaningful. These moments are becoming rare. Not because people are lazy, but because our brains are being conditioned away from depth. But it doesn't stop there. This constant chase for pleasure impacts not just your habits but your identity. You start believing you're not a focused person. You think your anxiety is just how you are now. You assume your brain fog, your restlessness, your lack of motivation are personality traits. They're not. They're symptoms of overstimulation, of unmet needs, of a brain trying to survive in an environment it wasn't built for. And the consequences run deeper. Long-term exposure to high dopamine activities rewires the brain's reward system. What does that mean? It means you get less pleasure from things that once fulfilled you. You lose your sensitivity to subtle joy. A walk in nature doesn't excite you. A good conversation doesn't light you up. A book feels like too much work. So what do? You go back to what feels easier. More dopamine, more distraction, more short-term pleasure to fill a long-term void. And the cycle continues. Eventually, you start to feel numb. Not in a dramatic way. Just disconnected. Like you're watching your life more than living it. You wake up tired. You go through the motions. Nothing feels wrong, but nothing feels exciting either. This is the cost most people never see coming. Not addiction, not crisis. Just a slow loss of your own spark. And here's where it gets even more dangerous. The more you dull your senses with pleasure, the harder it becomes to listen to your own intuition. You start ignoring the signals your body and mind are sending you. The fatigue isn't just tiredness, it's emotional burnout. The restlessness isn't just boredom, it's a longing for something deeper. But instead of addressing those signals, you mask them with pleasure. Again and again, until you can't even tell what you really want anymore. You might be thinking, but I'm not doing anything extreme. And that's the point. The habits that harm you the most are rarely the dramatic ones. They're the subtle ones. The ones that don't look like problems until they've already reshaped your life. A few minutes of scrolling becomes hours lost. One night of comfort food becomes a pattern of emotional eating. One missed workout becomes a week of lethargy. And before you know it, the person you thought you were, the one who had energy, clarity, ambition, is buried beneath layers of habits that were never meant to define you. So what's the solution? It starts with awareness. Dopamine isn't bad. Pleasure isn't wrong. Your brain isn't broken. It's doing exactly what it was designed to do, responding to patterns. But that means you can create new ones. You can retrain your mind to find satisfaction in the things that matter. Not instantly, but gradually. And it begins with reducing the noise. Try a dopamine detox, not to punish yourself, but to reset. Spend 24 hours without any high-stimulation activities. No social media, no processed snacks, no mindless content, just space, silence, stillness. It will feel uncomfortable, boring, maybe even frustrating. But underneath that discomfort is something powerful, your original settings, the part of you that still finds joy in simplicity, curiosity, stillness, depth. Then, begin to rebuild. Prioritize low dopamine, high reward habits, journaling, deep reading, exercise, time in nature, face-to-face connection. These activities don't spike dopamine like a slot machine, but they build something deeper: resilience, clarity, purpose, and over time, your brain will begin to crave those things again. You'll notice your mind feels clearer, your attention longer, your inner voice louder, because here's the truth most people forget. Your attention is your most valuable currency, and every time you give it to something meaningless, you're telling your brain what to value. But when you choose focus over friction, presence over pleasure, depth over distraction, you reclaim your mind. You stop living in reaction and start living by intention. The brain you build is the life you live, and the pleasure you chase today is shaping the person you'll be tomorrow. So ask yourself, is your pleasure feeding your growth or stealing it? Let's get real. Living is about purpose, something bigger than the moment. But chasing comfort day after day doesn't just make you relax, it gradually erodes what your purpose looks like. What motivates you? What makes your heart beat faster? And when that happens, you don't just lose interest, you lose direction. Most people don't wake up one day and realize they've lost their edge. It's more subtle. An unfinished project here. A once loved hobby that suddenly feels exhausting. A thought, why bother? What starts as pleasantness endures and then, unnoticeably, starts diverting your life's energy. Before you see it, seeking comfort has left your ambitions on pause and your passions untouched. Think about a time you felt fully alive, when something motivated you so much that you couldn't stop working on it. Whether it was building something, helping someone, or chasing a goal, that's living with integrity. But living for ease, that's survival. And survival is not what your soul is made for. When you prioritize comfort, you say yes to quiet, daily pleasantries, and no to, well, life. Scarcity-based thinking, why exert that much effort when a little pleasure is easier, surveys your potential, then locates the nearest exit. And what seems like rest becomes a pattern. Resist discomfort, chase fleeting praise, avoid risk. But if every day includes pushing you only an inch outside your comfort zone, over time you'll never notice the inch. You'll barely notice you stopped growing. Purpose doesn't come from having time. It comes from filling your time intentionally. But here's the catch. Comfort tricks you into thinking you're living intentionally. Relaxing soothes the itch. Distraction masks the truth. At first, solo time with your phone might feel like a reward, but soon it becomes your go-to refuge, your escape hatch. And edging out meaningful challenges, an honest project, a tough conversation, a stretch goal, becomes easy to avoid. It's not that big leaps are impossible, they're just uncomfortable. And comfort nurses that pain away. You wake up on a Saturday with plans to work on something meaningful, but adrenaline eases in. Before you know it, you're on social media. You used to feel the rush of progress, now you just feel restless. And that restlessness, that's your soul reminding you exactly what you used to care about. The most painful part, everyone applauds rest. No one thanks you for struggle. In fact, society praises relaxing. But deep work, hard conversations, emotional leanings, they're messy. They don't conform to algorithms. They don't trend, but they do define excellence. They do shape identity. They sharpen meaning. And they require engaged attention, not artificial comfort. You've likely seen this play out. Goals made in the heat of inspiration that slowly fade into easier routines. Relationships that didn't get deep because confrontation would break the flow. Skills half learned because it never felt like the right time. It all adds up to self-betrayal, displacing your potential with stagnant convenience and shallow emotion with misaligned identity. But let's be clear, avoiding discomfort isn't weakness. Your brain does it by design. Discomfort is a survival signal, and our bodies are hardwired to flee discomfort. In prehistoric times, staying warm, avoiding predators, sourcing food, that biological programming made sense. Now, evolved brain and being meets an environment of infinite comfort. Your survival wiring hasn't caught up. From vitamin D lacking sunlight replaced by notifications, to evening exercise swapped for a warm bed, consciousness meets instinct, and too often distraction wins. The result is this slow-motion drift from who you are, at worst, unnoticed. But seconds become habits. Habits become months. Months become years. Without anything shocking happening, life loses its center. You begin to feel small, not because of any external change, but because something inside you moved away from integrity. This erosion doesn't just dim your shine, it gnaws purpose. Peace without struggle is comfort light. It's not deep, it's not real, it's survival. That means you start drifting through daylight and reaching for distractions before you even know you're bored, exhausted, or stuck. And here's one of the cruelest ironies. The more you chase comfort, the more you lose the capacity to chase challenge. You breathe life into purpose by facing resistance, stretching your limits, risking something real. But you only get that opportunity when you say yes to discomfort, when you try, fail, learn, and stand up again. Without those entire arcs, discomfort to accomplishment, you remain safe, but small. But here's the thing, this pattern won't correct itself. Purpose doesn't sneak back in after viral distraction. Passion doesn't reconnect, because you suddenly feel guilty. And purpose doesn't roar in the void, your phone just plugged. It demands presence, discipline, courage. It asks you to look past the soothing illusions toward the silent bright spot of possibility, enough to feel fear but not freeze. It starts with asking, what did I want to build before comfort took over my Saturdays? What did I dream I'd learn? What conversations did I avoid because it was easier to smile than say the hard truth? Then, resist the urge to comfort yourself. Realizing you drifted used to be courageous. Now use that strength to move back. You don't need to go from zero to hero. Purpose isn't sprinting toward planet launch. It's small steps of integrity. It's choosing effort over impulse. It's finishing a task when your instinct wants a distraction. It's planning discomfort as well as ease. Daily resistance builds muscle. Emotional, intellectual, relational. And that muscle becomes the fuel for meaning. Without it, your life becomes gently numb, directionless, accidental. With it, your days become created, not consumed, crafted, not defaulted. Living with purpose isn't easy, but neither is drifting through life that doesn't belong to you. That voice inside you that feels quieter every night before bed. That's the voice that knows comfort, stripped value from your days. And every time you choose an edge over an easy moment, you answer that voice. You say, I'm here. Maybe it's learning something new. Maybe it's deep work. Maybe it's a vulnerable conversation. But whatever it is, do it uncomfortable. Do it present. Do it intentional. Time is the one currency you can't earn back. And yet, every comfort you indulge silently withdraws from it. Not in bursts, but in small dribbling losses disguised as harmless choices. A little here, a little there, until your calendar looks full, but your life feels empty. And the real crisis, you didn't even notice the balance was evaporating. Think about it. You wake up, with plans to work, to create, to show up for something meaningful. And then distraction whispers, just check one notification. Before you know it, you're down the rabbit hole. One tab leads to another. One clip becomes binge-watching. You look at the clock and realize hours are gone into black holes of spliced content, ads and algorithms designed to keep you scrolling. But it didn't feel like a big deal. It felt like a break. But breaks stacked become blocks. Blocks become walls. And walls silently shut the door on your time. We don't feel the loss because it's incremental. Comfort doesn't demand attention. It rewards with ease. But ease doesn't make for meaningful stories. It doesn't build a legacy. It doesn't push boundaries. It doesn't allow you to live. It keeps you safe in a loop of unimportant moments. Days, weeks, and even whole months disappear without visible damage, until you sit down and realize none of it mattered much. That's the debt. That's the theft. Let's get candid. I didn't have time might be the most inaccurate lie you tell. Because your calendar was full, but your habits left you feeling empty. You chose the easy fit over the exact purpose. An easy fit fills absolutely nothing. It's like occupying space with air, present but insubstantial. And when enough air accumulates, your life looks full, but it's hollow inside. No one forces you to scroll. No one wakes you and detaches your eyes to the screen. This is your choice, and it starts innocently. A little relief, a little comfort. But soon, that relief costs you your edge. That comfort robs you of focus. That peace becomes a cushion between you and growth. You stop noticing what you've lost, because comfort doesn't come with bills. It comes with blurred lines and fading aspirations. Do you remember what you planned to do last weekend, or the weekend before? Did you keep that promise to yourself, or did autoplay and social doom scrolling happen instead? When you look up and ask, where did the time go? It's not because time ran out. It's because comfort rented space in your attention and paid rent in time. Let's break it down. 1 hour a day scrolling equals 365 hours a year. 15 entire days lost. 1 hour of binge-watching TV per night equals thousands of hours by age 60. You could have read 100 books, learned a skill, deepened relationships, but instead you chose clicks. Worst of all, those are hours that never refunded. That's life that never refunded. That's your potential, spent quietly, invisibly, without ceremony. And to compound matters, the longer it continues, the harder it is to restart. You don't feel the difference, because the loss is diffused. It's not dramatic, it's a slow fade. But what if you treated your time like money? What if each minute expended on mindless pleasure required permission, like signing off on a check? You'd think twice about that constant adjustment of boundaries. You'd reject the autopilot offers of comfort, and you'd save up for what actually matters. Because time debt isn't just about lost return, it's about opportunity. That moment could have been spent creating instead of consuming. It could have been spent learning instead of lingering. It could have been spent connecting instead of coasting. But comfort traded those moments in for instant ease, and time, like money, compounds. The hours you waste today reduce what you can build tomorrow. It's not just hours, it's energy, attention, identity. Every second not invested in purpose is seconds removed from who you want to become. And the cost isn't paid by a moment, it's paid over time, until your life begins to feel like a string of in-between minutes no one will remember. That's time debt, not a drama, a steady erosion. The worst part, you don't even recognize the damage until you realize you can't keep your promises. You finish nothing. You never start what you intended. Projects pile up. You feel more tired, yet less satisfied. You drift, not crash. Quietly, comfort makes sure of that. It's easy, safe, and unremarkable. And while you stay in that space, your dreams shrink to fit around your excuses. But it doesn't have to be this way. You can start a simple financial habit. Allocate your time like you allocate money. Create a time budget, dedicate unbreakable hours to creation, connection, learning, and treat the rest with caution. Don't let comfort hijack your attention without your knowledge. Turn off notifications, set app limits. Reward yourself with time, not by default, but by design. This isn't about going cold turkey. It's about valuing your minutes. Recognizing that comfort isn't free, it's a trade. And if you're trading your time for tiny moments of just okay, you're trading potential for placement, never earned. Life moves forward with or without you. Time doesn't wait. But your time spent consciously can build momentum. It fuels confidence. It anchors identity. It opens doors to growth and purpose. And even small choices ripple out. One phone-free hour a day for 6 months gives you 180 hours. 370-hour weeks to build what matters. Your calendar isn't your enemy. Comfort is. But comfort lost its charm when it cost everything you weren't watching. So if you've been feeling flat, scattered, or stuck, don't look at the clock. Look at the choices. Time debt isn't about having too little. It's about spending too little wisely. Pleasure doesn't just take your time, it starts taking your identity. Quietly, slowly, without asking. One indulgence here, one shortcut there, and suddenly you're not quite sure who you're becoming. Not because you've changed your values, but because you've adapted to avoid discomfort. And in doing so, you've built a version of yourself that feels good in the moment, but starts to feel unrecognizable over time. Let's be honest, most people don't realize it's happening. You skip a workout once, fine, twice, okay. Then suddenly you don't think of yourself as someone who moves anymore. You stop calling friends back, Weeks go by. Social connection fades, and now you're the quiet one, the one who stays home. You used to journal, read, build, create. But now you just don't have time. The truth is, you do. You've just been replaced by a version of yourself that chooses what feels good now over what feels right later. The real cost of constant comfort isn't just missed opportunity, it's the erosion of identity. You used to believe in effort. You used to be proud of discipline. You liked the version of you that fought for things. But over time, as easy choices stack up, you begin to shrink your identity to match your habits. And once you start becoming the person who avoids the hard stuff, it gets harder to return to the version of you who didn't. This is what no one tells you. Every act of avoidance has a silent story attached. Skip the call. You don't follow through. Delay the project. You're not reliable. Put off that goal. You never finish what you start. These stories aren't told out loud. They form silently in your self-perception. And over time, you stop setting goals because you don't trust yourself to chase them. You don't even fail anymore. You just forget to try. That's not laziness. That's identity erosion. Pleasure makes it worse by rewarding you with quick emotional hits. One more scroll. One more bite. One more episode. One more escape. But every time you reach for that pleasure instead of the hard thing you meant to do, you train your brain to prefer the easy you over the real you. And the worst part? It starts to feel normal. Like this is just who you are now. But it's not. It's who you've become through repetition, not intention. Think about the last time you felt proud of yourself. Not just satisfied, but proud. It probably wasn't after a snack or a nap or an impulse buy. It was likely after you resisted something tempting, after you pushed through the resistance, after you kept a promise to yourself. That's the thing about real pride. It only shows up after discomfort. But pleasure tricks you into chasing relief instead of self-respect. And that's a dangerous trade. When identity starts bending toward what feels good instead of what feels true, everything changes. Your goals get smaller. Your dreams feel further away. Your standards drop quietly. And then you start rewriting your personal narrative. Instead of "I'm someone who gets up early," it becomes "I've never been a morning person." Instead of "I used to love writing," it becomes "I just don't have the creativity I once did." But these aren't truths, they're defense mechanisms. You're reshaping your personality to protect your comfort. That's identity debt. And it adds up fast. Soon, the version of you that used to lead the way becomes just a memory. And the new version, the passive one, the avoidant one, the comfort-chasing one, takes over your day-to-day. You're not proud of this version, but you tolerate it because it keeps you from discomfort. It also keeps you from transformation, because you can't evolve while protecting the very habits that are keeping you small. But there's a way out, and it starts with noticing. Notice the places where you've let go of standards, where you've started telling yourself stories like "it's not worth it," or "I'm just not that type of person." Question those, challenge them, because those aren't facts. They're the echoes of repeated choices you didn't realize were shaping you. Start small. Reclaim your time in 5-minute chunks. Choose one promise to keep today. Wake up and act like the version of you who still believes in effort. Not because you feel motivated, but because you want to rebuild trust with yourself. That's where identity starts again, with one act of integrity. One hard thing done on purpose. One resistance met with action instead of avoidance. And don't expect it to feel natural. At first it won't, because pleasure has numbed you. It's trained your brain to equate ease with peace. But ease is not peace. True peace comes from alignment. When your actions match your values, when your habits match your purpose, when your daily choices tell the story of someone you respect, that kind of peace takes effort, but it lasts longer than any dopamine hit ever could. The people you admire, they aren't stronger than you. They've just mastered the skill of choosing identity over impulse. They act like the version of themselves they want to become, even when it's hard, especially when it's hard. And that's the quiet revolution you need to start, reclaiming your identity one hard decision at a time. So if you've been feeling off, unmotivated, unsure, it's not that you failed, it's that you've been disconnected from your real self. The one who shows up, who builds, who keeps promises, that version of you still exists. It's just buried under 1,000 comfortable choices. Start digging, one decision at a time. Because when you choose discomfort over distraction, action over apathy, and progress over pleasure, you stop borrowing identity from who you used to be. And you start becoming someone you actually recognize again. There's a point most people don't see coming. It doesn't hit you like a breakdown or a big fall. It doesn't make headlines in your life. It arrives quietly, through silence and sameness. One day, you just stop feeling things as deeply. You laugh, but it doesn't reach your eyes. You rest, but you still feel tired. You win, but it doesn't feel like a win. And that's when you know something deeper has gone missing. Not your goals, not your relationships. Something more subtle, something harder to name. You've gone numb. This is the final, and perhaps most dangerous consequence of chasing constant pleasure, emotional numbness. A slow, creeping fog that rolls in over your inner world until the highs don't feel high and the lows are just dull thuds. You don't even realize it's happening because you're still functioning. You still smile in photos. You still respond to texts. But inside, the lights have dimmed. How does this happen? It starts when pleasure stops being a celebration and becomes a coping mechanism. You're no longer eating the cookie because you're joyful. You're eating it to avoid something. You're not watching the 10th episode because you're entertained. You're watching because facing silence feels unbearable. And every time you choose the escape over the emotion, your emotional range gets smaller. You avoid pain, but you also flatten joy. Over time, the things that used to light you up just feel fine. The music doesn't hit like it used to. The sunsets look pretty, but you don't pause for them. Hugs feel nice, but not meaningful. And love, excitement, curiosity, all of it starts to feel like someone turned the volume down. But here's the hardest part. Most people blame themselves. They say, maybe I'm just not passionate anymore, or I guess this is just adulthood. Or worse, maybe this is who I really am now. But that's not true. It's not who you are. It's who you've become after too many cycles of choosing numbing over noticing. Because that's what pleasure-based living does. It doesn't just numb pain, it numbs life. This doesn't happen overnight. It's dozens of tiny trades. The scroll instead of the silence, the snack instead of the conversation, the impulse instead of the reflection. And the more you do it, the less you trust stillness, the less you trust yourself. You fill every gap in the day to avoid the discomfort of feeling too much. But in doing that, you also avoid the most meaningful moments. The awe, the gratitude, the heartbreak that teaches you something, the thrill of uncertainty that reminds you you're alive. And here's the part that no one wants to admit. Numbness feels safer. Because feeling is risky. It means confronting grief you haven't processed, regret you've buried, hope you're afraid to fully believe in. So instead we float. We say we're fine. We chase novelty to avoid depth. We choose comfort not because it makes us happy, but because it keeps us from falling apart. But staying numb doesn't keep you safe. It keeps you stuck. And eventually, the cost of that numbness is your aliveness. You stop dreaming. You stop connecting. You stop being moved by beauty, or truth, or even pain. You don't cry, not because you're strong, but because you've forgotten how, and that's not strength. That's spiritual dehydration. The solution isn't a dramatic overhaul. It's not about quitting your job, deleting every app, or moving to the mountains. It's about choosing to feel again, on purpose, even when it hurts, especially when it hurts. Because the only way back to meaning is through your senses, your full, awake, uncomfortable, beautiful senses. So start small. Watch a movie that makes you cry, even if it wrecks you. Take a walk without your phone. Let a song hit you in the chest. Eat something slowly, like it matters. Look a friend in the eye when you say, I'm not okay. And let yourself be seen. These moments won't feel normal at first. They'll feel raw, maybe even too much. That's okay. That's how you know you're waking up. That's how you know the numbness is lifting. Because real life, the kind that makes you feel deeply, isn't always pretty. It's messy and painful and vulnerable. But it's also breathtaking, and you can't have one without the other. The real danger of constant pleasure isn't addiction, it's emotional starvation. It's when you trade depth for distraction, substance for surface. But the good news is, you can reverse it. One feeling at a time, one honest moment at a time. You can learn to sit with discomfort again, and in doing so, recover your capacity for joy. Because numb might feel safe, but it's not a life. And if you want to feel like yourself again, if you want your world to feel rich again, if you want your soul to feel alive again, you have to choose something harder than pleasure. You have to choose presence. And that choice starts now. So now that you've seen what's really at stake, let's talk about where this all leads. Because this isn't just about pleasure, it's about the slow, quiet transformation happening in the background of your life. The one that no one warns you about. The one that doesn't feel like a crisis, but more like a soft erosion. Every time you trade discomfort for ease, depth for distraction, or stillness for stimulation, something in you gets a little quieter. And if you're not careful, one day you wake up and realize the version of yourself that used to feel deeply, dream boldly, and care fiercely, is gone. Not because of a big mistake, but because of 1,000 tiny ones. But here's the part that most people never get to hear. It's not too late. Not even close. Because the truth is, no matter how far you've drifted, you're only ever one conscious moment away from turning back toward yourself. This isn't about shame or guilt. It's about waking up, about noticing what you've been numbing and choosing to feel again, choosing to want again. Because when you stop feeling, you stop desiring. And when you stop desiring, you stop growing. You stop reaching. You stop becoming. Let's be honest, our culture is addicted to comfort. Everything is optimized to remove friction. One click, same day. Skip the ad. Autoplay the next episode. It's all about less effort, more pleasure. And on the surface, that sounds amazing. But the shadow of this comfort is stagnation. The shadow is that you become a passive consumer of your own life rather than an active participant. You stop creating. You stop building something that matters. And worst of all, you stop caring that you've stopped. That's what's been stolen. Not just time or focus or health. What's really been taken is your agency. Your ability to direct your life with intention. And once that's gone, it's very easy to live a life that looks fine on the outside, but feels hollow on the inside. A life where every day starts to feel the same, where the thrill is gone, the meaning is gone. And the worst part, you don't even know what you're missing. You just know something is off. So what do you do now? You start by noticing when you reach for comfort instead of curiosity. When you avoid hard conversations by diving into entertainment. When you silence your thoughts with noise. These moments aren't failures, they're invitations. Invitations to pay attention, to choose something different. You see, life is built in the space between stimulus and response. That tiny pause where you get to decide, do I do what's easy or do I do what's true? And the more you choose what's true, the more alive you become. Not in a dramatic, overnight transformation, but in subtle shifts. You start feeling again. Music hits harder. Conversations go deeper. Goals feel real again. And that version of you, the one that's been buried under layers of distraction, starts to return. But this return requires something from you. It requires effort. Effort that isn't always rewarded immediately. Effort that sometimes feels invisible. But this kind of effort builds something lasting. Something meaningful. Because when you stop outsourcing your pleasure to apps, algorithms, or food, you begin reclaiming the deeper joys. The ones that stay. The ones that grow with you. You also begin to realize that some of the discomfort you've been avoiding, boredom, sadness, longing, aren't enemies. They're messengers. They're pointing to something you've outgrown, something you need, something you're not facing. And if you keep running from them, you never get the message. You stay in the loop, comfortable but stuck. And here's something else no one tells you. You don't need to fix everything today. You don't need to overhaul your life. You just need to interrupt the cycle. Choose presence once, choose meaning once, choose depth once, and then again, and again. Because repetition is what got you stuck, and repetition is what will get you free. You already know what this looks like. It's not dramatic. It's you, turning off your phone and going for a walk. It's you, sitting with silence instead of filling it. It's you, choosing to write instead of scroll. Call instead of text. Reflect instead of react. These aren't just tiny habits, they are the tools of your reawakening. And yes, it will be uncomfortable. It should be. Growth always is. but it's also exhilarating. It reminds you that you're not just here to survive or consume. You're here to create, to love, to struggle, to build, to lose, to get back up. You're here to live, fully, honestly, unapologetically. So here's the truth: the forgotten consequence of pleasure isn't just distraction, it's disconnection. From your body, from your mind, from your purpose, and most painfully, from your own soul. But that consequence doesn't have to be permanent. You can choose different. You can choose to remember, to feel, to care. Because the goal isn't to eliminate pleasure, it's to stop using it as a substitute for meaning. To stop letting it distract you from your own becoming. And the moment you realize that, everything changes. So if this video resonated with you, if something inside you stirred, even just a little, don't ignore it. That stir is your spirit trying to wake you up. That flicker is your fire trying to burn again. Let it. Leave a comment below and tell me one small thing you're going to change this week. Not for discipline, not for productivity, but for you, for your peace, for your power. Because you deserve to live a life that's not just easy but real. A life that's not just comfortable, but conscious. Thanks for being here. Thanks for watching. And remember, every moment you choose presence over pleasure, you reclaim a piece of yourself. That's how you come home. We'll see you in the next video.